nervous. That is very good. So we are having a lot of examples of mental blocks that are occurring at an emotional level. Because nervousness, anxiety, a lack of confidence are all at the emotional level. So if this person could train himself, could train his mind to react the right way when he is faced with an emotional challenge, then he would probably not find that meeting very intimidating. It might be intimidating, but he would still be able to overcome the challenges that he would have. Because if you look at like inspirational books and the inspirational speakers, there are plenty out there, they will always tell you that courage is not the absence of fear, but courage is the ability to act even though you're afraid. Do you think, I'm not scared right now? Oh my goodness. I'd like to come over there and borrow a handkerchief from one of you, actually. So it's not a question of whether you are scared or not, it's a question of whether you can handle that fear and still do what you have to do. Okay? Going to the next one. Case study 3, a project lead. Now this is completely different from the previous two examples. The project lead completed writing performance reviews for 8 of his reports. The next review is about an extremely poor performer. Though the PM has all the facts he needs to write the review, he finds it extremely difficult to work on the task. Now, firstly, would you even consider this to be a mental block?
Yes. Yeah. Emotionally.
That would be a mental block emotionally. So that would be at the emotional level. Do you think it's a mental block at the intellectual level at all?
Yes.
Why would it be at the intellectual level?
Might not have the skills to be a good performance reviewer.
That is true. That is true. Let us say that you do have the skills to be a good performance reviewer.
It's always easier to write a good review, but very hard to write a bad one.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point. So, the question about having the right skills to write a performance review is also very important in the light of what this lady just mentioned. Because if you know how to write a bad review, then you really have the skills to write a good performance review. Right? So, what about boredom? Do you think that it is very attractive to write a bad review? It is not attractive at all, because you have 100 examples of what went wrong, but you don't know how exactly to organize them, where to start, where to finish, right? So there's a lot of boredom that comes into the picture, and that is when you would probably want to attack it to a certain extent at the physical level. You go and get a cup of coffee and see if that numbs you sufficiently so you can write the bad review without really thinking too much about it. Any other thoughts? Yes, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say that intellectually, I think there's always a problem here, because even if you write this poor review, you're always thinking in the back of your mind, if I write it too well, this guy's going to get immediately terminated. And that may not be the end result that you're looking for.
It's a very good example, actually. So you're pondering about the outcome of your review, right? Will this guy get terminated or not? And you might not be wanting to hurt him because he might be the sole bread earner of his family. So what do? So you might be worrying about all these. That's an excellent point. Any other points? Physical, emotional, intellectual? Go ahead.
Is this the example that he knows what to do and he knows how to do, but he really doesn't want to do it?
That is correct. He knows what to do, he knows how to do it, but he does not feel like doing it. That is absolutely correct. That's a good summary of the situation. So there are certain tasks that we all have to do once in a while that we really loathe. We don't just feel like doing those tasks. And that is why we procrastinate, right? And we have to find ways of getting over that need to procrastinate. We have to find ways of pushing ourselves to actually do it. What do you think is the strongest motivating factor to make you do something that you really don't feel like doing?
Money.
Get it over with, that is correct. The need to finish it and just get over to the next thing that you have on your plate, right? The other strong motivating factor that I always have at the back of mind is just the ownership. You own that problem. You have to deal with it. It's just ownership. That is a very powerful factor in creating strong teams, because if you can infuse your team with a feeling of ownership of the tasks that they are responsible for, then your team performance is going to go so much up. Okay. Team exercise. Think of a situation where you had a mental block. Which of the above reasons can you attribute to it, and how did you overcome it? Do we have any volunteers? Would you like to talk amongst yourselves for 2 minutes and come up with an example? Can I have a volunteer to talk about this? Go
I'll
ahead.
give you an example of a
Sure.
mental block my teenager has.
Okay.
She's been procrastinating on getting her driver's license, even though she wants it. But
Okay.
I think she's putting it off because of the emotional levels. She's afraid of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
So that's her mental block on getting things done to get her permanent driver's license.
Right. That is actually an excellent example, because being afraid of the unknown is a huge cause for mental blocks. You don't know what you're getting into. That is actually a very powerful example. Thank you so much. So there is this young lady who wants to get a driver's license but is unable to get a driver's license because she's not willing to take the test because she's afraid of what the outcome of the test might be, something like that, right? So do you believe that a situation in itself is threatening? Or do you believe that your perception of the situation always makes it more or less threatening? The perception of the situation, right? The situation by itself is threatening in certain situations. Say I was not a human being, say I was a tiger who was in this room with all of you human beings. That situation would be very threatening, right? Then if you like to watch, Bourne movies, the Bourne Identity and Bourne Ultimatum and all that stuff, there are threatening situations all over that movie, those movies. So in those situations, you actually have the possibility of a physical threat coming over you, right? Those are physically threatening situations. But in a situation like this lady said, that it's just a question of taking a threat, your perception of that situation is what actually makes it very difficult. Can we follow that thread just a little further and talk about any situation that you might have come across where the situation looked very threatening, but once you went through it, your fears disappeared and you actually laughed at yourself because you had made a big deal out of a small thing? Yes, go ahead.
Switching employers.
Switching employers, that is an excellent example. That is the one biggest reason that people typically don't like to switch jobs, because they don't know what's out there. But once you do, you might find it to be a much better job, right? That is an excellent example. Yes, go ahead.
This is kind of a silly one, but I remember going to amusement parks, like 5, 6 Flags, and waiting in line to get on the huge roller coaster. And the whole time I'm waiting in line, I'm like, why am I doing this? I can't do this. This is crazy. Look at that drop. Oh my God. I mean, literally, the heart is just like the anticipation is building, building, building. And then you get there and you're on the ride and you're freaking out, and then it's over and you're like, oh my God, it was fabulous. I want to do it again.
Right. That is another great example, actually, of not wanting to go to a little roller coaster just because of the fears of the unknown. But when you have gone through it once, then you start enjoying it, and then you want to do it 10 more times. Anything else? Go ahead.
First time public speaking, delivering a speech.
Yes.
Having to think about what could